Hi there, this is Matthew from Patchworks, and in front of me today we have the Polyend Tracker, which is an 8-track sampler with a tracker interface. It's a full-on workstation, very powerful. And we also have the Modal Sculpt, which is a 4-voice virtual analog synthesizer. It actually sports 32 oscillators and 256 step sequencer. Pretty wild for such a small synthesizer. Part of the reason why I paired these two together is their form factor. Both of these devices could fit in your backpack, and both of them together could fit in your backpack, along with a power bank, and you could go sit at the park and make some music. And because the Polyend Tracker has stereo line-in, you can actually audition all the sounds you want from whatever synthesizer you bring with it, and record it right into your tracker. So, pretty cool, portable, and affordable, which rhymed. So what I want to show you today is how quickly you can make music on the tracker using the fill function. So I'm going to use the fill feature in the Polyend Tracker to do some randomized sequencing of external gear, which today is the Modal Sculpt, and then we're going to save those stems into the Polyend Tracker. And we can either use them later, we'll name them appropriately so we can recall them and use them with any one of our productions, because the way we're going to use the fill feature is going to be done by scale. So the notes aren't going to be entirely random, they're going to fit within a scale so you can recall this later and use it in other compositions. Alright, so to get started with this, what we have to do is go into record mode. And the first thing we want to do is select all the steps that we want to have this randomized sequence go into. So if I hold shift and press up, it'll select all of a track. I'm using track 8, which is currently set to MIDI channel 1, which is instrument 51 here. So on instrument 51, it's sending note and gate data out to the Modal Sculpt, and that audio is coming back in through the line input on the Polyend Tracker. And we can hear that now. Cool. So from here, back into record mode, I'm going to go ahead and select fill. So now that we're in fill mode, I want to select random for where it places these triggers, these note triggers in our sequence. And the density here is how many of those random trigger events are going to happen in the sequence. I'm going to leave it at 50% because I think it sounds all right. Now over here on the scale mode, I'm going to select minor. By default, this is going to be C minor because our pad layout is set to a root note of C. So if you want to change what scale you're working in, if you want it to be C sharp or D or whatever, you have to go into your config settings and change the pad layout root note. Now next I'm going to choose random for what notes it selects, and now we have the option to choose from one octave to another or one note range to another note. I'm going to use C2 to C3 and just see what we get here. Whoops, went all the way to C4. Let's go down a little bit. Okay, to C3. So now we're ready, and it's going to fill this sequence in for us. So hit fill, and let's listen to what we've got. Now on the Modal Sculpt, I can actually move this up an octave if I want to see how it sounds higher. That's kind of cool. So let's see it on another octave up. Cool. I'm going to leave it like that. But what I want to do is, because it's easier to use stems that have an immediate sound when you audition them, or it's hard to choose a stem that has silence in the beginning. So I'm going to move these steps up. So what I want to do here is hold shift while I'm in record mode and press backspace, starting here on this note, and it's going to move the sequence up until the D sharp 2 starts at the beginning of the sequence. Cool. So now what we want to do is sample this. I'm going to go into the sample recorder. Monitoring is already turned on. Here we have the option to adjust the gain if this is too quiet. Looks like it could use some more gain, or I can turn the volume up on the Modal Sculpt. That seems about right. So over here on the left, you could choose different sources. There's also a mic input, and then you can also choose the radio if you like, which is similar to the OP1. It works really well, and it's very cool. But we're going to sample our Modal Sculpt instead. So I'm going to hit record and hit play. Okay, cool. So I'll stop it. It automatically adjusts the start and end point for us. I'm going to hit the start point and zoom in just to make sure that it's got the correct start point. It tried its best. It did very well, but not quite perfect. So I'll do that. And I don't really have to adjust the endpoint because I'm going to let this be re-triggered. Now that we've adjusted the start and the endpoint of our sample, I'm going to hit crop here. And I could bring this endpoint a little further back here. I know that that's where it ended. And that's fine. That's going to work for me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit crop one more time, and then I'm going to hit save. Here we get to name our sample. So we can use this keyboard and type something in, or we can use auto name, which is really cool, and I mostly use because it's just so convenient and strange. But we do want to name our sample, so I'll call it something like synth plux C minor. So we have synth plux in C minor. We can save this and I can recall it later if I want and use it in a different composition. Save and load. What this will do is save the sample and also load it into the sample loader so we can use it immediately in our production. So now I'll go back over to my pattern and I can mute this track and move over to this track and place down this new sample, which is already ready to load. So boom, there we go. I can hit play. As you can hear, it's very quiet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my sample editor, and there's a normalizer here. I'll select this effect. That's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this effect and go back into the pattern. It saves the sample. I have some drums over here that I'm going to unmute, and we can hear how this sounds with some percussion behind it. Really cool. Super easy to get making music right away. What's really cool about using a sample of our sequence rather than just using the external device itself is not just that we can layer it and layer the external device on top of the sample, but we're actually able to access all the parameters of the sampler itself. So we can use the sample editor here and change that sample around, make new versions of it, but we also gain access to the performance effects, such as filtering, reverb and send delay, chorus, a flanger, bit reduction, all sorts of cool effects that we wouldn't find on just incoming audio. But what I'm going to show real quick is just jumping into the performance mode, and as quickly as it took us to make this music, which was no time at all, we're also going to be able to perform it as well. So I'll select all these tracks to arm them for performing. Here's a filter. Repitching. Bit reduction. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope you enjoyed this little demo. You can do this over and over and over again and layer these samples on top of each other and just continue to use these different features in the fill mode. The Polyend Tracker really can help you write your music, which is an excellent feature if you're having trouble coming up with a new melody. If you're interested in the Polyend Tracker or the model sculpt, visit patchworks.com. Again, I'm Matthew from Patchworks. Have a great day.